Okay, so since I just now remembered that I needed to record this, I'm going to do a 2-second recap of everything up until now because I started before I hit the record button. So very quickly, we're talking about service to sale conversion. We're talking about service opportunities. We're talking about them in two main ways. We're talking about the service customer who's already coming in. We're talking about the service customer that you could be bringing in. So we'll be talking about those. Also, once we have a service appointment, we're going to be talking about two ways of approaching the customer who's coming in. We're going to look at a proactive approach in anticipation of the arrival, and then we're going to look at a kind of a reactive approach. They've arrived, now what? So where we are right now in the conversation is we're talking about having established if-then rules for customers based on appointments that are set. We know that north of 80% of service customers set an appointment before they show up. We also know that north of 80% of all those appointments are anywhere from 24 to 36 hours or further from showing up from the time they set the appointment. So there's a window of time from the time they initiate the appointment to the time the customer's coming in. And that could be obviously 2 days to 4 days to 7 days or 2 weeks, depending on the job. That being said, there is a window of time we can maximize our staging and preparation for the service opportunity. So now, with that stage being set, here's what we know. We have a customer who's coming in. We're going to establish if-then rules. If-then rules, since some of you were already paying attention, and I'm going to put you on the spot now, go ahead and tell me, what are the if-then rules? What's the idea of an if-then rule?
If the vehicle makes a criteria that you set up, if it does this, we have a process that follows this process.
Yes. If-then rules are, if a vehicle meets a certain criteria, then a certain process is activated or triggered for that criteria. Now, what I just shared with you before I hit the record button was that not all service customers are created equal, and therefore there should be a way or a mechanism for prioritizing the value of an opportunity and creating slightly different if-then rules based on the value of that opportunity. So I'm going to put it back on you and ask you, what are some of the metrics? What variables would you say, if this, then that leads to a higher value, more prioritized opportunity, it should have a slightly different rule? What are some of the things we can use to kind of separate, if I wanted to have an ABC category, and for now we're taking notes, an ABC category, what I want you to do is I want you to just kind of write A customer, B customer, C customer, so ABC. And then I want you to tell me, what are the criteria that would qualify someone as being an A-tiered customer through service? What does an A-tier customer if-then look like? What does a B look like? And what would a C look like? In prioritization of value, your A customer is your highest valued opportunity. So if a car meets these criteria, they are an A. If they are an A, then this rule must be triggered. So that's the basics of the if-then philosophy. So somebody tell me in the room, what would constitute an A? Why would a car be valued at an A, or a customer type be valued at an A? Give me a variable.
I think there's probably a couple of ones there, but bought more than one vehicle and services with us.
I think you said bought more than one vehicle and services them with us.
Yes.
So the relationship the customer has to the dealership should be a factor.
Yep.
I do not disagree.
Yep.
So the customer relationship to the dealership, and if you can quantify it as simply saying, you know, are they a repeat customer or are they a loyal customer, right? So you have basically three categories when it comes to customer types, referring to what you just mentioned. In the highest level, you would say you have loyal customers. These are bought cars and service with you. And then you have repeat customers, people who's bought a car and services a car with you maybe. And then you have a conquest customer, someone who services with you but didn't buy it from you. So you have your loyal people, you have your repeat customer who's bringing the car they bought, and then you have your conquest customer. They didn't even buy it from you, but they do service with you. All three are different types of customers, and all three are not created equal. You're 100% right. Okay, so let's go to the next one. What would be another variable other than the relationship the client has to the dealer?
Inventory needs.
Exactly. So give me something very specific relating to inventory needs.
Third row SUV under 75,000 miles, financeable 2015 or newer.
Yep. So one of the criteria would be the year of the vehicle then, just to give you categories to think in. Certain years of vehicles are just more desirable. There's a window on both sides of that, right? Certain vehicles too old don't make sense. Certain vehicles too new probably don't make sense. And so there's kind of a sweet spot, the Goldilocks zone of an age of a vehicle coming through service that if a vehicle meets this criteria of the age, it's kind of our sweet spot for retailability and financeability, right? If it's too new, if it's a 2018 or 2019, there's a really good chance the customer is too buried in it and is not able to get out of it. If it's too old, if it's 2010 or 11, it's harder to finance in that situation there. So you've got kind of a sweet spot. You know your lenders. I would just try to figure out what is that Goldilocks zone that if a vehicle has this year on it, it should pique our awareness and make us go, okay, this is the sweet spot of the years. So give me an idea. What do you think the framing is for the Goldilocks zone for your banks, for your market?
Credit union is probably 2013 up.
13 to 17?
I'd say 13 to 16, but yeah, 17.
Yeah. So somewhere in that 13 to 16, 13 to 17, 17 being the pushing too close to being too new, 2012 being too old to be financeable and to be a good retailable piece, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So you need to have an if-then rule that if any vehicle meets this criteria, if it's from a 2013 to a 2000, let's say 16 for now, any vehicle between 13 and 16 that sets an appointment, another question must be asked about that car. And so that could be a high trigger point. Every single service manager, service advisor, every one of them that sets any appointment with any car, that's that. The service advisor must ask a follow-up question because that criteria is in the Goldilocks zone of one of our strongest metrics for determining whether or not this is a high value opportunity for us. So we've got to trigger an if-then rule. If this, then what? In this case, then a new question must be asked. So it's not enough to know that it's a 2015. That's not enough. So just because a car sets an appointment for 2015 does not mean that that is our best car. But what it means is that because it hit this rule, 13 to 16, if it's 13 to 16, then another question must be asked. What is the next question that must be asked? Because the next question could disqualify the car or keep it in the running for being a quality opportunity. So what's another metric we want to know?
Miles.
The miles of the vehicle. Yeah. So once again, there's probably a Goldilocks of miles. There's a sweet spot of miles. If it's a 2015 and it's within this many miles, or if it's 2013 to 16 and it's within this many miles, then another question must be asked. So what is the Goldilocks zone for miles probably?
80K.
What's that?
80K and under.
80K and under?
Yep.
Yeah, perfect. So 80 and under. So if it's a 2014 with 73,000 miles on it, then, right, because if it was 2014, then we must ask what are the miles. In this case, the miles between this range, then we must ask another question. What's the next metric?
Clean title.
What's that?
Clean title.
Well, the service advisor wouldn't know that when setting appointments, right? They wouldn't have that information. That's not in the purview of their understanding. That's not something they would be able to follow.
Any mechanical issues probably would be the next one that they would ask.
What's that?
Any mechanical issues.
Yeah, well, you could say, for example, I would say the potential size of the service tab. So let's say that it's going to be north of $1,000.
Yep.
If it's going to be north of $1,000 that they're going to be bidding on the car for the service job, right? Let's say I'm calling in, I'm saying, hey, I've got a 2014 XYZ. It's starting to give me some transmission problems. I think the transmission's slipping. If I brought it in there, what's that run to get that replaced? The service advisor is going to say, well, let me ask you some questions, go down a series of chains of questions. And then he's going to say, you know what, for a service transmission replacement like that, if that's what it's going to come to, you're probably looking to be somewhere around X to Y. At that point, the customer's going to go, okay, that's what I needed to know. Thanks so much. I'll let you know. And then they're going to hang up. The service advisor is not likely at that point to let us know that that happened, right?
Correct.
Okay, but that kind of stuff is happening. There are calls into service to get a quote, and those quotes are coming in beyond the scope of the appointment being set. So the customer calls in about an opportunity for service and says, hey, I want to know what would it take to get this job done. And then either because of time, how long it'll take, or because of money, people are turning down the job on the customer side. They're saying, you know what, I'll let you know, and they're hanging up. Here's the question though. If I'm calling in to get a job done on my car and you tell me it's gonna be 2 weeks out, I don't got 2 weeks to wait. So I'm calling another shop. Let's say they say they're 2 weeks out. Now I'm starting to get frustrated. Well, you as management need to know that somebody with a 2015, with 52,000 miles on it, is now calling around trying to get this job done, and your service department told them an answer they didn't like, and there's no follow-up or follow-through to pull that car into service as a service to sale conversion opportunity. There's no process in place because you simply don't have the if-then rules established that if this happens, this is what must happen next. And so you've got to have some of these if-then rules. All right, now let's go back to the scenario where we're going down the chain. If it meets a certain year criteria, we said 13 to 16, that's your Goldilocks zone. If it meets a certain miles criteria, up to 80,000 miles, that's your Goldilocks zone. So what's the next criteria? It could be the service bill size. Anytime a service bill is over X dollars, and you need to know for your market, and you need to know for your brand, and you need to know for your customer type, what service tab is probably going to cause people to go, whoa, is it 500 in your market? Is it 1,000? In some markets, it might be $2,000, but there's a point where a certain age of car, a certain miles of a car, and a certain service tab causes people to go, do I really want to put that much money into that car? Right? Does it make sense to put $2,000 into that car, or should I use that same $2,000 as money down to get a new car? The problem is right now, if we don't have proactive processes in place, is you're not getting into that conversation before the consumer becomes a car shopper. You need to insert yourself at the top of the funnel before they become a consumer shopper. Because what's happening, unfortunately, is right now, some of your processes are activating them to start thinking about buying a car instead. They're going to car gurus, they're going to cars.com, they're going to third-party sites, and they're beginning the shopping cycle, and they're already down further on the funnel, which means they're more price sensitive, they're more, inventory sensitive, they're now car shoppers instead of catching them at the very top of the funnel when they're just a frustrated service customer, and that's a better place to catch them. Okay, so give me another if-then rule as we're going through the if-then rules. By the way, if you're watching the live stream right now, thank you for watching the live stream. You just put in your name, tell me who you are in the live stream. I'd like to see who you are. And if you have any comments on this or questions, love to see them in the comments. Okay, so what's another criteria? We talked about the age of the car. We talked about the miles of the car. We talked about the service potential bill, right? What's another variable? Talk to me, people.
Can't think of anything.
There's another one I'm going to say. It has to do with, and again, this is probably true already for the majority of your vehicles, but it's the actual model of the car.
Yeah,
which is to say, there are certain models of cars which are higher value models for your inventory than others, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And that actually can be determined partly by the current incentives pushed by the manufacturer on the new version of those. So if I know, for example, that the beginning of August, let's say August 2nd, I get the manufacturer pushes out the programs and says, here's the incentives on these trim levels. Immediately on our side internally, we need to begin to say, okay, with these new incentives in place, what if-then rules should be changed for service customers because of and in light of these incentives? Is the manufacturer pushing a certain model right now, a certain trim level? Well, certainly if there's an additional rebate, if it just moved from $1,500 to $2,500 on a certain truck or a certain SUV, knowing that information and integrating that into my if-then rules and service is absolutely essential as part of capitalizing on opportunities that are the highest value and highest priority opportunities. Yet most dealerships, the programs are changing literally monthly from the manufacturer. Thank you very much, manufacturer. The programs are changing all the time, but that information is not being channeled through intentionally, not being communicated through to the service side. And so you have service writers and service managers and service personnel talking to customers who literally have an extra 1,000 reasons to swap out of that car, but they have no idea on their end that that's happening. And that's a mistake, I think, as well. So we want to make sure that whatever incentives and programs that are available, that is one of the if-then metrics as well. If it meets one of these criteria for incentives and programs, then it moves up. So each of these metrics, what is the year of the vehicle? That could be your foundational metric, right? That's a really simple one. If it meets this, then you must look at the miles. If it meets the miles, then you must look at the service bill. If it meets the service bill, then you must look at the incentives. If it meets the incentive list, then it graduates itself to a high priority note, which means at that point, once it crosses, let's say that third if-then rule or that fourth if-then rule, or maybe even have 5, but at each level that the vehicle crosses the boundary and goes up higher on the scale of interest, at each of those levels, it becomes more critical that we get an early process started and a significantly customized process started for that kind of customer. So we set up the if-then rules. Like I said, there's 3, 5 levels, maybe at the most, maybe 7. And any car that graduates through it gets flagged. At that point, we now need to know that that car is scheduled for an appointment. And let's say it's scheduled for 2 days out, or the next day, or a week from now. Whatever the scheduled time is for that, the service advisor, whoever's making that schedule, a system, a process of communication must be put in place that gets notified to a specific party or group of people. Now, one way that I think that could be done is obviously a simple message box. You could do an open. There's certain apps that you can use for inter-office communication. I want to just ask you guys, what would you use now likely? Like if I said service writer sets his appointment, hangs up the phone, puts the notes in, and then must make a communication to 3 people that this appointment is being set, how would that happen probably right now? What's the cleanest way of communicating that information?
Probably, I was going to say, what's our WhatsApp app?
I can't hear you. Say it again.
Our WhatsApp app.
On group text, not
Group text.
Okay, is that right now, is that already established? Is there a group text right now?
No, the only thing that we have internally is we just converted over our new phone system to Ring Central, and you can do it by groups through the company as well too.
Okay, so here would be the thing I want to make sure happens. And this is my preferred method, and certainly there's probably a way to make it better, but this is what I know right now could work. Each individual service writer is involved in some form of group message with 2 to 3 managers. So each service writer has on their phone or on their device or on their computer desktop or something like that, they have a messenger box or a messenger chat or a text thread or an email chat chain with 2 to 3 managers. When that happens, that they hang up that phone, right? They can literally at that point, they can just say customer last name, first initial, level A, appointment for 2 o'clock tomorrow, whatever. But they're going to say the customer name, the type A, B, or C, and they're going to say when the appointment is. And they're going to hit send, at which point one of the 3 people who are on that text chat from the sales side, one of the managers on the shed has to say basically ownership, I'm on it, it's mine. And that can be just like literally a first available at that point. So if all 3 of us get the notification and I look at my phone and I'm in the middle of desking a deal, I'm not responding to it right away. Somebody else in the middle of desking a deal, they're not responding to it right away. But at some point, somebody has to say ownership, it's mine. At which point they're taking it off the clock and saying they're responsible for now, since it's a level 8 priority, highest value customer, for now initiating the if-then rules on their side, on the sales side. So the if-then rules we talked about so far were on the service side. Now we have if-then rules on the sales side, right? What are we going to do with this information? Well, if we know when we pull up the customer profile, if we know they bought the car from us, which the service manager wouldn't necessarily know that, right? Or the service advisor wouldn't necessarily know that. But if I pull up the customer and I go, oh, they bought that car from us, they bought several cars from us, I can pull up notes, I can see if they're in the CRM from a lead already. Have they generated any leads yet? They haven't. I can then take the vehicle information and look at it and go, okay, I can start to run an estimated market value on that car. I can say, okay, what's the likelihood that this car is going to be a good retailable piece for us? What do we have for programs right now on that car? you know, what makes sense to do in anticipation of their arrival or when they arrive to make sure that we get a good opportunity to properly vet that car for our inventory and give them a chance to upgrade. That's some of the processes that then on the sales side we have to decide, right? So that's kind of how that if-then process would work in anticipation of a customer arriving. So prior to the customer arriving, when they've set the appointment, we must have if-then rules when the customer is setting the appointment. We also have to have if-then rules for non-appointments. As I mentioned before, if a service writer takes a call with somebody and they do not set an appointment, they do not accept the invitation to bring the car in, but it met a few criteria, you must have an if-then rule in place for that as well. And this could easily trigger, for example, email, same kind of chat. It would be customer name, type A, non-appointment. Now I get that, I got it, I pick up the phone, I call the customer, hey, Mrs. Jones, I understand you just called our service department about your transmission on your vehicle and got a quote from us. The reason I'm calling you personally is I may have a way of helping you out with that. And here's why I'm calling you. Your car meets several criteria that our system uses to flag opportunities for our customers to upgrade their vehicles. Specifically, because the incentives just changed, there's an additional $1,000 rebate available for your car because it meets our Conquest rebate program, or because it meets our loyalty rebate program, or because you're whatever, here's what it does. And I wanted to make sure that you at least were aware of the option to, instead of spending $2,000 on your transmission, to allow us to help you get into a nicer, newer car, give you the peace of mind, certainty, and confidence of driving a car, blah, blah, blah. You get the picture. The point is that if-then rule must be in place the same way in the case that the customer declines the appointment and declines the service and job. We've got to capture those opportunities too, because that may be happening 3 times a week, maybe happening 10 times a week right now. You probably don't even know. Does anybody in the room know how many times that's happening? Can't hear you.
No.
So that's, I think, a great opportunity there. So, all right, so now we've talked about prior to the customer showing up, the if-then rules. Now we have a customer who physically does show up. Car is in the drive, customer has checked in, customer's in the process of checking in. Same kind of thing. At the time of the check-in, at the moment of the check-in, when the customer's pulling on the service drive, we need to have an activating rule that tells us that a tier A customer has arrived. So we need to have, again, that group chat. I'm the service writer. I'm going out and checking in the customer. I need to be able to send a simple message that says tier A in the drive. Tier A in the drive is all I need to say. I can just say, you know, I could probably just type the letter A and hit send to that group message. You know that it's coming from me because it's coming from my phone as a service writer. So one of you has to say, I'm on it. And that's you walking back to service to bump into that tier A customer and find out what's going on. So you can keep it super efficient and clean that way. But at that point, when a tier A, which is your highest valued opportunity, shows up at your dealership, you must be positioned to make a proper introduction and to make sure you know what's going on. So if you find out who it is and you say, you know, for example, it's Mrs. Jones and you had her information because the appointment was set, at that point, you can go, oh, yeah, actually, Mrs. Jones, it's a pleasure to meet you. Your name actually came up in one of our meetings 2 days ago when you set your appointment because when you set your appointment, the system actually notified us that your vehicle actually meets a few criteria. There's a couple things I want to share with you because of that are important to you personally. And then you're going to share with Mrs. Jones that you have some things you'd like to do. And those things are, if you're taking notes, things like obviously appraise her car, get her an estimated value on that, get her opinion on a replacement car, and then obviously get her a proposal. Those would be the 3 goals that you have. What I would encourage you to put in place, and I encourage every dealership to do this, is to have enticements or inducements, incentives, if you will, for the customer allowing each of those stages. So remember, this is a tier A car. At each level, a A, a B, or a C, you're gonna have different levels of willingness to induce and entice because there's different levels of value, right? So, but if it's a tier A customer, let's say it's that 2015 with 62,000 miles, just out of warranty with a $1,500 service tab likely to happen because she's given a 60,000 mile check and she's also needing to replace tires and brakes. right? So it's that sweet spot Goldilocks of all these things. And she bought it from you new, and she's had it for 4.5 years, right? So if that's the Goldilocks customer, what is the value of getting her to allow you to at least appraise it? You got to put a value on that. What's the value of that? I would say for a Goldilocks customer, $25 per appraisal to me is an absolute minimum that I could say I can justify. So what I might say to her is, what we're doing right now, because your car meets these criteria, is we have a $25 gas card that we'd like to give you just for allowing us to appraise your car while it's here. Now, Ms. Jones, if you're open to giving us feedback, not a commitment, but feedback, while we're appraising your car, if you will answer a couple of questions on a little survey card about one of our other cars in our inventory, obviously we'd love to know what you think about the new models. If you'll just give us feedback on that, that $25 card becomes a $50 card. And so that becomes $50 gas card given to you today for just allowing us to appraise your car and going ahead and looking at and giving us feedback on the new one. Now, if you are also willing to allow us to present you an offer today, a proposal that you don't have to say yes to, but just to allow us to entice you a little bit, that becomes a $100 gas card if you'll allow us actually to show you what the numbers would be. Now, the idea here is if you gave 10 of those out, let's say you did numbers on 10 people, right? Then your total exposure is $1,000 on 10 tier A Goldilocks customers. Yeah, that seems like a bargain to me. If I did 10 full sales presentation, vehicle demonstration, and vehicle proposal on tier A customers, and it cost me $1,000 to do it, I would do that all day long. That's a no-brainer, because my average cost of acquisition to go buy a car from the auction, just to go buy a car, is what on auction fees? I don't know. Like, what is the auction fee for example, on what you're seeing right now, the different ones that you participate in, Tahir? What are auction fees right now?
$550.
How much?
500, 550.
500. What's an average per unit transportation cost to get it to your dealership typically?
500.
500. And to be the last hand up at the auction right now, to be the last hand up to win the car, on average, how many hands ago should you have probably stopped?
$4,000 ago.
Yeah, right? So my point is, you're literally overpaying on the market $1,500 easily to buy a car from auction. You're overpaying because you have 500 in transportation, 500 auction fee, and you should have stopped 5 hands ago and you overpaid $500, right? Whatever. So you're overpaying $1,500 per car you buy at the auction. So if you can get 10 appraisals, 10 customer test drives, and 10 write-ups, 10 proposals for $1,000 of your tier A Goldilocks people, oh my God, that's so worth it. I can't see how you can't do the math on that and make it make sense, right? So that's the idea. You have to have these if-then rules, and you have to have a reasonably incentivized inducement offer to cause them to let you move them mentally through the step-by-step process of examining the opportunity to upgrade. You've got to have an enticement inducement. Now, another option of that I think is really clever is to, instead of doing the gas card, is to do internal gear from your parts department. So I've seen this already. Some stores are getting a display case, right? Like a really nice display case. And they basically have things like progressive things like keychain, hat, shirt, watch, windbreaker, umbrella, whatever, from their branded material, their Mopar gear or whatever, and they have it on this display case. And then what they have is they have a point value, like you go to when you go to like Chuck E. Cheese, or when you go to like the main event game centers, and you play all these games, and you get these tickets, and then you turn these tickets, and they turn into points, and with this amount of points you can get an eraser, right? Or you can get a Pez dispenser, or you can get a slimy, whatever. So in a similar way, what they're doing is saying, hey, because your car already met this criteria, because your car just met the criteria and you brought it in for service, you already have 10 points. And so 10 points gets you a keychain already. But if you'd like, you can upgrade your points by letting us appraise your car. If you let us appraise it, the appraisal's worth 25 points. As you can see, that would unlock you to get the t-shirt or whatever. If you allow us to get your responses back on a quick survey question, we have a few questions we ask you on the new model. Just answering a couple survey questions gets you this many points, go on our test drive this many. And so it's literally just a point sheet. And the customer can kind of win points like they're at the circus. They can win points moving themselves up the process of unlocking things inside the display case. So if they want the windbreaker or the umbrella or whatever it is based on value, you know, they have to let you do a proposal. And then if they buy the car, they get everything in the case. So if they decide to buy the car, they literally get the whole matchup. So I think that's really interesting. I think that's really exciting. And I think that's the kind of stuff that I would like to see more dealerships be intentional about. Now, I want to show you a few things that you maybe haven't seen before. And then we'll wrap it up with some questions. And then I want to talk for a few minutes about driving traffic into service. So we'll do that next here. Okay, so what I'm about to pull up for you is a couple of examples of how to approach service customers in a super passive way. That's non-intrusive. That doesn't get in people's faces or cause challenges for them. Let me see here. Hey, I just got the notifications from NADA to see whether or not I've been accepted as a speaker for next year. They're in my inbox. I should open them and you guys could be the first people in the world to know whether or not I'm going to be a speaker. But what if I didn't get accepted? That'd be embarrassing. I don't think I should stream that live. That's probably not a good idea. I don't think I want you guys to see me cry.
Come on, Dawson, it's probably a no-brainer.
All right, let me show you. Let me show you what this looks like here. Hold on. All right. Tell me if your screen changes and you can see this, okay? All right, you able to see that?
It's just black. There you go.
What's up now?
Questionnaires, CMAs, Williamsburg Ford. There you go.
Okay. All right, let's just as you're looking at this, gentlemen, this is a double-sided 2 cards per side. So it's identical on the left and right, so ignore either the left or the right because it's identical left to right, but it is double-sided, which means there is a front and back. So you actually get 2 cards double-sided per sheet, okay? So as you can see here, this is a feedback card. We're committed to providing you with the best experience possible, and we appreciate your feedback. Please fill out this questionnaire and return to the team member you received it from, or place it in the box next to the coffee machine. Thank you. How was the quality of your service and attention you received from your service advisor? There's a scale of 1 to 5. Was your service advisor courteous? Yes or no. Informative? Yes or no. What is the satisfaction with our dealership overall? Scale of 1 to 5. How satisfied are you with the current vehicle? Scale of 1 to 5. How familiar are you with the newest model year vehicles and their features and upgrades? Scale of 1 to 5 on familiarity. If you could get into a nicer or newer vehicle while keeping your payments relatively low, would you? Scale of 1 to 5 from no way to I'd consider it. Please rate your openness to a free equity evaluation or upgrade scenario for your current car. Scale of 1 to 5 from no to I'm curious. And then which would be the most important in your next vehicle? A series of options: safety, comfort, pricing, payments, dependability, other, and so forth. Backside of the feedback card. Do you plan to return to our dealership for sales or service? Yes, yes, yes for sales and service, yes for service only, or no. Would you recommend our dealership to a friend? Yes or no, why or why not? Do you currently have a contact at the dealership to call on should you, a friend, family member, or coworker have a question, comment, or a concern? If so, who's your contact at the dealership? Do you currently know a friend, family member, or coworker who may want a nicer, newer vehicle? We're prospecting for referrals. What advice or suggestions would you give to a car dealership or salesperson if they were willing to genuinely listen and take action on your advice? Looking for feedback. And then please share any additional thoughts or comments. And then there's a spot for that, their name, email, cell, and then the representative at the bottom. Now, this is an editable document. I'd be happy to send it to you guys. for your customization at your store. But the point is, this here document can easily be printed on some kind of cardstock paper. You get 2 survey feedback cards per sheet, and this could be easily passively used for your B or C tiered customers. So instead of going through the full presentation and invitation and enticement inducement for a B or a C, depending on where you're at with inventory, depending on where you're at with what kind of B or C are they, this could be a passive way of recognizing, hey, this is a B or C customer, so there is a value there in making sure that we at least initiate a contact, but we don't necessarily need to commit all the way because they're not that Goldilocks, A tier customer. So that's an example of the feedback card as a way of doing that. Now, okay, so you should have the image there. Do you guys see it?
Yep.
So this is a double-sided hang tag. At the bottom, you see the repair order for the service visit, and then there's a QR code, and it says aim your camera here to unlock your savings. All you have to do is just point your camera at it. That's it. You don't have to do anything else, and it'll automatically open up a page for the customer to access to see the programs, incentives, and things like that they can have access to. Now, I'm going to show you what that looks like so you can see that page for this particular hang tag. Let me.
Also, is there a vendor that does that?
No, this is a creation of my own. I created this process as a solution for COVID because so many of my clients weren't allowed to staff for their stores, and so I needed to create a process that would allow a touchless, personless introduction to set up an actual appointment because we weren't allowed to help anybody unless they had an appointment.
Yeah, it was by appointment only.
Pardon me?
It was by appointment only.
Yeah, it was by appointment only, and so because it was by appointment only, and it had to, you couldn't staff to have somebody there to prospect. I created this as a mechanism to prospect passively. So let me show you what this looks like when you land.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so customize your offer. It's going to ask you for the RO number. I'm just going to put in some zeros for now, and then hit unlock offer. And here's what it pulls up as. All right, so you can see here, once I put in the RO, it says customize your offer. I would like an instant cash offer for my car to sell it to you. I'd like to know the value of my car as a trade towards a nicer, newer version. I would like to know the value of my car as a trade towards a completely different vehicle. I would like to know the available manufacturer dealer incentives I would qualify for. I would like to know if I can lower my current payment, lower my rate, or defer my payments. I would like to receive a service offer towards my next service visit. I can check any of these, all of these that I want to. And then when I hit get custom offer, it will give me a thank you message, tell me thank you for that, and my request is being, or my custom offer is being generated. Then that sends an email. In this case, right now, it sends an email that has the RO number attached to the customer, and it has the selections that they made, so we know what they're asking about, which then triggers if-then rules. If they're asking about incentives, then obviously we get a new car manager involved and get a salesperson involved because they're looking to upgrade their car. If they're asking about a value of their car, get the used car manager involved because they're obviously wanting to get an appraised value. We need to start with that. The point is, though, if they're wanting, let's say, for example, service coupons for the next visit, we can then reignite the service offer that they may have just declined, because oftentimes there's decline work on probably, I'd say, at least 25% of your service. There's some sort of decline of recommended service. So let's say they declined to get the brakes this time. Well, you could send them a 20% off brake pads and get them back in on decline service work. So that's the idea there. But anyway, so that's that whole system there. All you've got to do, it's really simple, is that page that you just saw is built into their website in a hidden page, which means there's no tab for it. There's no way to land on that page unless you use that QR code. So that's how you land on that page, right? You have to find it that way. You can't navigate on the website to find it. Then all you have to do is make up the marketing message, in this case, the QR code marketing message. You could theoretically make that marketing message, again, custom to your service department. You could make that on a hang tag and then have a certain hang tag be, again, I'm getting a little bit in the weeds here, but I just want to let you know what's possible. Okay, so don't get distracted by the options. Just trying to know this is where you could take it. You could theoretically set up 3 different QR codes, 3 different hang tags for an A, B, and C car. So your A car might have a slightly different message. Literally, the A car could have like a video. It could have you know, a stronger incentivized offer. It could have more things on it because they're A customers. And so an A car that went through service has, you know, a red hang tag, and a blue car is a B hang tag for the B customers, and a green hang tag for the other ones, whatever, red, blue, green, different colored hang tags, all of them with different QRs, all of them landing on completely different pages. They would only see that page if they had that access to that QR. And then from there, you can then channel what their reaction is or response is to the appropriate offer that you want to give them. And that's a passive way of soliciting service that doesn't require anything other than a service writer to put that on there based on the if-then rules that you've given them for every car. So anyways, that's a couple of ideas on that. I want to just take some questions on that before we move off that topic. So what questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, hopes, dreams, fears, observations, or compliments do you have? Go.
So the RO code, the RO would just be, you go to the search bar and pull the RO, get customer information after that point. That's how
You're going to have to speak up. I did not hear you.
So on the RO, the QR code on the landing page, basically we're just going to have to go get the information from service after that point, correct?
Well, so typically somebody has access to your DMS. Your DMS would have where the RO links in. So
Yeah.
the way it's set up right now, because it's not, you know, this is, I said, I literally made this up like 3 months ago. There's not a software that does this naturally. Otherwise I'd sell it. So right now, what you would do is that email with the RO would probably go to, for now, maybe the general manager who has access to the DMS, or you have to give somebody else access. You put that in, it pulls up everything you need to know. I mean, you have the customer's contact information, you have their name, their email address, you have their vehicle, you have everything on the service ticket. I mean, it's all there. So at that point, then you would just route the information based on what kind of request they made. So somebody just has to have access to be able to plug it in so that you can get all the customer information, because it's linked to their car, their name, their address. You have everything. At that point, you can pull that into the CRM if you wanted to see, you know, any other contact information, any other attempts at contact. But you should be able to pull up customer everything at that point. You pull up history of ownership. Did they buy it there? You can find out everything you need to know.
Yep. I like it.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions on that, comments, or concerns?
You may speak now. Corey?
Oh, I'm good.
Okay. So I did want to talk a little bit about service, building up more service business, generating more service business, but that's actually something I probably need to run past Tahir and your service advisor or service manager, Tahir, because that's going to be at the level that you guys both have to agree on. So I don't need to take up your sales manager's time anymore with that, because that won't relate to them yet. Because driving service traffic only then puts more people in the funnel that then the processes we've just talked about would be relevant to.
Okay.
Okay. So thank you guys for your time. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. I hope you liked it and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.